Well, we are continuing to talk about the parts of the liturgy and we hope that as we understand these pieces more thoroughly, that we will be able to enter into the liturgy with more meaning. And so it's helpful to discuss these different pieces, and it's hard to do that sometimes in a service. So we do it. We're doing it through these little videos. Last week we talked about confession, a public general confession, that we confess to one another our own sins. We do that together, and we come to a place after that where we share in the peace. This is sometimes, people are confused by this. It feels like our worship is all of a sudden interrupted by socializing. But that's not really what's happening. The origins of the peace comes from the Holy Kiss, and this is mentioned in Romans 16:16, 1 Corinthians 16:20, 2 Corinthians 13:12, 1 Thessalonians 5:26, 1 Peter 5:1. And this is mentioned by Justin Martyr in the year 155 AD and Tertullian around 200 AD. So this is an ancient practice within the church, this passing the peace to one another. Well, what are we doing when we are passing the peace? We're not just sort of saying hello to one another and greeting one another, although there's nothing wrong with greeting one another, but the peace has a theological reality to it as well. David Yago, a Lutheran theologian, says this: "We confess that this peace is not simply a hope or a dream, but a reality in our midst. We confess the risen one who comes to his disciples and bestows this peace upon the church. But we do more than just confess. We also take it upon ourselves to bestow this peace upon one another. The sharing of the peace is a gesture of blessing, of benediction, and a blessing is not a wish, but a gift." So we're not saying, "I hope you have peace." We are, in a way, blessing people with peace when we pass the peace. As we come out of a time of confession and receiving absolution for our sins, we are, in a sense, made at peace with God through that act. And now we move into being at peace with one another by the passing of the peace. So the peace is three things: an encounter, reconciliation, and anticipation. I was kind of jumping ahead of myself a little bit here. And as an encounter, it reminds us that we meet Christ in one another. And in a way, even, it might not even be possible to meet God apart from one another. When Jesus encounters Saul on the road to Damascus, and he is blinded, Jesus doesn't come to him and heal him apart from the community. He sends Ananias to go to Paul and receive him as his hands. Right? He is healed through Ananias. And in a similar way, we encounter Christ in one another. We read in 1 John, "If anyone says, 'I love God,' and hates his brother or sister, he is a liar. For he or she who does not love his brother or sister whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen." 1 John 4:20. So as an encounter, we encounter Christ in one another. And so we don't want to just want people to go away so that we can be at peace with God. Right? That's not what Christ has. That's not what Christ has created. That's not the worship he has created. He wants us to be in community. He wants us to be in unity with one another. He wants to encounter us through one another. He wants to speak through each other's words so that we can hear one another, so that we can hear him through other people's words. He wants to love us through other people. This is the church that he has created. It's meant to be a unity, and it's meant to be his body. And we are to encounter God through that body. As reconciliation, it dramatizes Matthew 5:23-24. So which says, "If you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. So it sort of dramatizes that reality. In a way, when I'm doing the peace, when I'm offering peace to one another, I should almost be seeking out anyone I have a problem with. If I've had a little bit of an argument with somebody, I should be seeking them out to say, peace be with you. The peace of Christ be with you. Because I don't want to carry that contempt, I don't want to carry that unforgiveness with me to the altar when I receive communion. As I received forgiveness from God, I also seek to be reconciled with others. And the Lord's Prayer talks about that, doesn't it? That forgiveness of others and forgiveness from God is like a lung breathing in and out. To receive that forgiveness from God, we give that forgiveness out. And it has to be this sort of continuous flowing. So we enact that reconciliation, that offering of peace to one another, so that we are at a place of unity and harmony before we come to the Lord's table. And as anticipation, it dramatizes the Eucharist as a foretaste of the banquet in the kingdom. The peace and unity experienced provide a glimpse of the kingdom which is yet to come. And so, yes, it should have a little bit of a mini celebratory sense to it, where we are meeting with our family, happy to look into the eyes of those we love, happy to touch and shake hands, happy to bless one another with the peace. That is something that is a joy, and we look forward to being a reality when the kingdom comes in its fullness, when we can fully live in that peace with one another. So this peace is not something that we drum up from ourselves. This is what Christ talked about in John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. The resurrected Christ is always saying this word, peace, shalom. Shalom means something like nothing missing, nothing broken. And that is what we are blessing each other with, because Christ has blessed us to pass that along to one another. It is a peace that is not dependent on our circumstances. It is a peace that transcends our circumstances. So I think that's all I want to say. That is the peace which flows out of confession and absolution. So as we are reconciled with God, we want to also be reconciled with one another before we come to the altar. We want to come with pure hearts and in a place of reconciliation and harmony. I hope that's helpful.